welcome to this particular session that is underlying a white paper that had just been recently published between Operto and AJL Consulting. And this is a piece that is part of our AJL Profitability Hub #2, our latest conference that we have organized for the vacation rental industry. We would like to have a more deep dive on one particular topic today, talking about optimization, profitability through technology adoption. I think that's something that is on top of all our minds, especially in current situations that we have, making sure that we're delivering best guest experience and a safe stay to our customers. And for that purpose, we have today Michael Dreger, co-founder and CEO of Operto, with us today to have a fireside chat with me, Simon Lehman from AJL Consulting, to talk about technology adoption in the hospitality space in general. Welcome, Michael, for our session here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Simon. I meant to have a fake fireside drawn by my children today, but they're very busy now playing with friends. Because they're allowed to do that now that we're well into phase 3. We're almost in phase 4 in Vancouver.
Excellent. Well, that's great news, Michael. And we in Europe, we are very worried that we're going back to phase 1 very soon. We have some very disturbing neighboring countries.
We do so too. We have the most disturbing neighboring country.
Yeah, actually, your neighboring countries are showing us how to grow the numbers quite exponentially. But let us not go there in more detail. That's not our job. Our job is to talk about vacation rental and hospitality in general. And the way I want to start this conversation, Michael, is that, you know, a few years back, when we looked at the OTAs, the way they added different type of inventory in terms of hospitality to their platforms, we talked about a lot about convergence, right? So convergence in terms of the hospitality content from hotels to service apartments to vacation rental. And we said, you know, this entire industry is converging into one. We call it hospitality, right? So the consumer gets different offers. He gets hotels, he gets vacation rentals, he gets STR in urban places, serviced apartments, and even B&B and beyond type of inventory. And then we all felt it's all becoming one. But now I would argue that actually this has disappeared again, and everybody's sort of focusing again on its own vertical and saying, you know, hotels are hotels and vacation rentals are vacation rentals. Master leases, STR, serviced apartments are another vertical, even though the customer has still the choice, but now the customer maybe decide on one particular industry more than on the other. How do you see that evolving, this topic in terms of convergence?
Yeah, I think the thing about the convergence is most of the structure of the nuance exists in the background in the eyes of a guest. So, and it's the same for kind of us. We're sort of a prop tech company. Those nuances and details no one sort of sees or understands. So like the functioning of how a boutique hotel is different than a serviced hotel, or a suite hotel is different from a serviced apartment. A guest can't tell that, right? They see a door, they see a kitchen, they see a bed, right? Those are the components of what they're booking when they look online. So I think even though that we're seeing, you know, a lot of consolidation, we're seeing a lot of verticalization, I think from the guest perspective, they're not really concerned about that. They want to book a place with XXX amenities, right? That's sort of how they look. Whether that pool is inside the hotel or whether that pool is nearby at a community center, whatever the case may be, they're booking based on need, who they're traveling with, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
So that means that convergence is actually still happening, but in a different way, different shape or form. So you're saying that the consumer can still differentiate, but what are his expectations then? I mean, let's talk about these expectations. You know, one thing that I've mentioned many times in the recent webinars was this study, and I believe Operto did some studies as well, and some research in terms of consumer behavior. And we always said that looking at the US traveler study, that we as a vacation rental industry are not able to convince more than 30% to actually use a rental versus a
Yeah.
hotel. And Operto did some studies on that as well. Can you share some of the results of that with us as well?
Yeah, it hasn't changed. And while like the numbers are really good in terms of booking for vacation rentals, domestic vacation rentals, I think seen a surge in France and in the US and Canada, everywhere, right? Like numbers are good, numbers are up, but it's all domestic travel. But what no one's really talking about is that the cities are actually up. They're really high numbers. We have a client, for example, in the US that does mostly service departments, but they look like hotels, and most people can't tell the difference. They were having 85% occupancies in June, and 50%, which is really surprising to me, were business travelers, domestic business travel, which I
Wow.
don't think is a number most of us would have assumed. And it's sort of a testament to that the way that they've presented that inventory, right? It's a hotel. It's not a hotel. They are apartments with intercoms at the front door. There is no concierge, right? And there's no person to check you in. So they use the Operto system on the intercom to let them into themselves in the building, and they use a 4-digit access code to let themselves into the actual suite, right? Business travelers don't care. they need a place. They know they're going to be staying for a while. They need a kitchen. They need a door. They need a bed. They're secured. They're good, right? Like, it's really.
So picking up on that point just quickly, and we'll go back to our previous conversation. But does that mean we're neglecting what is happening in the urban space, and everybody's just giving success stories in the leisure industry right now, and leisure industries is bouncing back like crazy, and the urban STR is really the one that is ultimately suffering? You obviously see some different.
Well, we see everything because we have inventory in everything. We have owners that own their own space and are renting it out. We have vacation rental management companies. We have service departments. We have hotels. We're seeing a huge uptake in hotels, basically pivoting very, very quickly and realizing that the model that the vacation rentals have used, because they had to, right? When you have a distributed inventory, you can't have a front desk usually. So they had to be really adaptive. So they were sort of the first to take on keyless entry and all of these pieces. But now, because of COVID, a lot of hotels are going, well, people were calling in sick for the front desk every day, or I didn't have enough people to staff it, or whatever it was. And I've come to realize I don't need the front desk at all. And so the number of hotels that we've been doing is very, very much higher than I would have ever thought. And the really other interesting thing is that as they're doing this, they're also making a big technology change. So they're changing from very, very old hotel PMSs to much more modern ones that have all the OTAs on there, right? So before, a hotel PMS probably had Expedia, maybe Booking, and you'd have your own website bookings. That was it. Now they're on every single channel, right? Every Airbnb, Booking.com, VRBO, HomeAway, now called VRBO. It's really interesting to see a very, very rapid pivot towards the way that vacation rentals became very, very successful and profitable.
I find this super unique, Michael, because you're seeing both worlds, right? And I think that makes this very interesting, and obviously, we live in one world, the hotel industry lives in the other, and we talked about this in the Convergence space, where we have not seen a lot of success stories in the hotel industry pivoting into vacation rental. We have many examples with Oasis, with Accor, One Fine Stay, you name it, Choice Hotels, and now Marriott is having a go at it, and hopefully will succeed. But at the end of the day, there hasn't been a success story, because hotels are hotels, right? Vacation rental is the Tupperware industry of the hospitality.
They didn't make the tech pivot. I really think it's because they didn't make the tech pivot. Because all of the economies of scale that you get through really good technology, right? Like a PMS that will auto answer and auto create reviews back to the guests, will auto answer a lot of questions. The hotels, like the really, really large hotels, they've started to adopt this and they've tried to create their own pieces. But the vacation rental management world, you've seen like you look at the VR tech event, like I don't know I mean, that kind of exists in the hotel world, but not to the level of sophistication and sort of like nuance that these companies are diving really deep into. Like really, really interesting things are like like when you probably don't go to very many hotel conferences. You go to very, very many vacation rental conferences, and they are starkly different when you go to both, because we go to both. And the big difference is there's a massive tech focus at a vacation rental conference. Unbelievable amounts of nuance when the OTAs come in and describe the users who stay, where they come from, their age, their demographic. It's extraordinarily nuanced, but at a hotel one, it's not nuanced. It's not at a tech level. It's nuanced at an operations level and a profitability level, but not at a tech level. But what I think what we're going to see, it's sort of like during like at the end of the Second World War, during the Second World War, there was a massive, massive change because of massive, massive pressure and a massive uptick in technology and technological advancement. And I think that's what's being created right now for the hotel industry. It's moving faster than I've ever seen it.
So why are these massive differences? I mean, that you know, you say the tech adoption, the technology focus is so high in vacation rental, but at the end of the day, we still struggle to address 70% of travelers about this vertical and say, hey, vacation rental is just as good and cool and great experience and good product as the hotel space is. So we're not able to obviously convince a traveler that vacation rental, short-term rental, and any products beyond the hotel are equally good in terms of quality and everything else. Why is that? And what do we need to do that? While the technology adoption you're saying is so high, but now you're seeing the hotels picking up on that. So for me, there's quite a big disalignment here.
Yeah, I think it's mostly, and I think you've said it before, and I agree with it when you said it, was that it's all about expectation management. And I think that because hotels have been around for so long, people know what to expect. And especially in an uncertain time, you want to stay in something that you recognize and you know its consistency, et cetera, right? Like, and I think that that's where vacation rentals have struggled a little bit, but it's only because one of its strongest parts is its biggest challenge, which is the diversity of inventory is amazing. And that's why people really will sometimes flock to a vacation rental, but it also makes for inconsistent expectations. Will there be sharp knives in the drawer? That's one of your things you've said before. And I agree, like you get there and you expect it to have a kitchen, but you can't even cut an apple, right? Like you can butter toast, but you can't cut an apple. Whereas, so it's just like, well, what am I going to expect? And so when one I have it and the other I don't. Whereas in a hotel, usually they won't even provide any of those things. So at least it's consistent. You know what to expect, right? I think, and especially in a time like this, like in our survey that we ran, we were really expecting to see that people were, from the booking data that we're seeing on vacation rentals, that people were starting to move towards vacation rentals, but they haven't. And I think it's because, they're still a little stressed as they're traveling. The world's a little uncertain and they want consistency. Like my kids wanting to watch the same episode of Paw Patrol over and over, right? Like you just want that level of like, I know what to expect. I do it because it's like a comforting thing almost.
That's why we're in an international world. My kids also have a platinum card of Paw Patrol. So, that's between Switzerland and Canada. It's the same thing. My kids love Paw Patrol and they have all the t-shirts and everything that goes for it. So do we need that in the vacation rental industry or in the hospitality industry? The way I understood you, Michael, from the start of our conversation, you're seeing a lot of uptake now in terms of the hotels and say, they can pivot very quickly. They can automate, the front desk person is not showing up because he doesn't want to get infected. So he's just turning in sick. And the hotel reacts and says, okay, I need keyless entry. I need to have, a control of my IoTs within the building. I hand this over to Operto. So that makes a ton of sense, right?
Yeah, we had one hotel go from 30 staff to 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just
And
by
that again is
implementing
back
your
to the whole
technology. Yeah.
profitability piece, right? Like, and this is what we sort of talked about in the white paper, where you go, like, if you think of like 100 units, especially, and that's one of the biggest advantages that hotels had, right? Is their inventory is all in one spot. So it wasn't actually that much of a cost for them to have someone there, right? But again, it's back to economy. On 250 unit hotel, it's not a big difference when you remove the front desk person, right? You probably still need to have them there. It's not a big cost. You have a 25 unit hotel, it's a massive difference to remove the front desk, right? Massive cost savings at 23 units.
So let's talk about unit density though, Michael, because that would be a strong argument. I mean, we're working with quite a lot of STR companies in touristic destinations who have, 200 apartments within a city, but the unit density is a big issue. And unit density to install remote door locks or automated door locks versus one building, how do we overcome these challenges, and how should a property manager look at that? And one thing we talk about profitability is also, in the vacation rental industry, the biggest challenge for a PM is always, how do I absorb these costs? Yes, it makes sense. I would love to have remote check-in. Yes, I would love to have that technology, but I still have a private homeowner, and this business is going to remain in that fashion. And we all agreed on that 99% of inventory is managed by an individual homeowner or owned by an individual homeowner. So this will never go institutional. This will never go institutional in big numbers, especially after what we have seen lately. Master leases, yes, they have a big boom, but they're now suffering greatly, and they're licking their wounds, and we will see new models coming out. But at the end of the day, vacation rental will remain with individual owners, and that's always a challenge. How do I work with the cost, and how can I build that efficiency to actually make it stick? To say, hey, homeowner, please pay for that lock, and these are the benefits.
Yeah, I guess in a way, there's some advantage to having the owner be nearby. Like in some, especially if they own it, it's sort of similar to, like, if you think of the problem where you have, let's say 40 houses that are all spread across like the beach, they're really far from each other. So if it's, as a property manager, it's your job to check people in and clean the units. Now it's going to be, now the cost is high, right? Because you've got greeters going over here, you've got people traveling from one, maybe 30-minute drive, right, to clean one unit to the other unit. But if the owners are responsible for those pieces, you're almost operating like a hotel, in that they're very, very close to where they need to be, because usually that's what happens, especially in the UK. Most of the cottages are within 200 meters of the owner's property. And so you actually have a huge advantage there, in that you almost have the same operating model as a hotel. It's just distributed rooms, if you think about it that way. So now the biggest cost is sending a greeter out there, or having the owner do that greeter, or however the case may be. But now you actually can track it with a smart lock, right? You know what's going on. You know when the clean has started, whether it's the owner doing the cleaning or it's someone that they have locally that they work with that does the clean. You can track that, and you can automatically create a new booking once that clean is finished, and communicate that back to the owner that's happening, right? It's more about workflow creation, a workflow, as much automation as you can. It's sort of like if you took a big whiteboard and you said, what are all the things that I do manually? And you make them a red line, from data entry to here to talking to this person. And the goal is just to turn every red line green and make that automated. And then because every single one of those lines represents an hour. So every hour that you can pull off to make yourself more efficient, whether it's through distance to drive and figure out who can be closer, or time spent on a task, just the more you can turn red lines into green lines, the more profitable you're going to be, and the more you can scale.
So let's pick up on profitability for a moment. I mean, that's something that obviously AJL is beating the drum about, that we need to think about profitability, not just revenue growth. I think growth models have seen the end of lifetime cycle. You know, just investing money, endless VC money into growth has clearly shown no result in pretty much every sector in our industry. And now people have, you know, we have really started to talk about profitability and say, okay, this can really help us. So in terms of a PM or a hotel as well, you know, where, you know, you made an example before for a boutique hotel in terms of operating costs and profitability, and I would like to talk about vacation rental for a moment. You know, where does that come in? You know, you and I have talked about this many times in the past to say, okay, you know, how can we build cases for a PM to say, hey, this really makes sense, because now the level of attention in terms of profitability has become higher, because everybody knows profitability equals oxygen, right? And if you have no oxygen, you die. I mean, I think with COVID, we have literally understood what oxygen means, and that also means the same for profitability. And if you don't have that, and now it's time to focus on that going forward. How does a PM need to look at that when talking about profitability through technology adoption?
Yeah, one of the most interesting things that we've seen from our vacation rental clients is the ones that have figured out how to charge for early and late check-in. So like early check-in, late checkout. So if you can monetize that, it actually ends up being a very, very large number. Like on one example of a client that we have, it was in the, you know, it was a number close to $100,000, just in $20 increments, right? $20 for early, $20 for late. And one of the challenges was they thought that number could be way bigger. The problem was it was all manually done. They would call the cleaner to ask if the cleaner was ready. They would then have to check with the guest to make sure it was 1 hour, 2 hours, right? So when we basically made it so that it could be automated, so that it was basically, okay, yeah, you want it? The cleaner's done, because we know they put in their checkout code. And now, yes, it's available to you. And then our system auto moves up the date, like the time that the code is active on the door, and then just check themselves in. So basically now you have the ability to do way more $20 transactions, and they're automated. The labor associated with making those is basically zero or near zero, right? There's obviously a little bit of a check that needs to happen in the middle, but you took maybe like an hour worth of time and you compressed it down to a 5-minute, like, yep, definitely ready.
Yeah. What can you say about consumer behavior in terms of that? Do the consumers change their behavior now? I mean, I'm going to check in tomorrow at 1600 hours into my chalet with my family, and I don't need to see anyone. I'm just happy to arrive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it's probably a long drive, right? Yeah,
it's only a 4-hour drive. Switzerland is very small, so
not bad. Yeah.
But the consumers, what can you tell us about the consumer behavior right now in terms of of technology adoption as well?
Yeah, well, so one of the interesting things we like to go back and look at review scores. We're really interested in what guests think. That's why we call ourselves a guest technology company, because really the focus is on creating great experiences, and we want to be part of that, and consistent experiences that the guest always knows this is reliable, this is how it works. And we consistently see, we're selfishly scanning for the word check-in or checkout in reviews. And it's actually surprising the number of times people leave, you know, a 10-star, let's call it 5-star on Google, 10 on Booking, and mention check-in with our clients and checkout. To your point, like, I don't have to see anyone, I don't have to worry about anything. I go to the smart lock, it lets me in, right? I know that I can get in. I know I don't have to meet someone who might be stuck in a coffee shop or stuck in traffic or whatever the case may be. It's just that feeling of knowing, yeah, the code is on the door, it's totally fine. I'll just get in. I won't have to meet anybody. I'll be safe and sound with my family. Yeah, I think that just anything you can do to make people feel more comfortable. I mean, obviously cleaning is a part of it, but that I think is like a more important part. If you sort of think of the hierarchy of controls for trying to manage, you know, cold and flu season, whatever it is, the biggest thing is that you want your staff to stay home if they're sick. It's number one. You want to do social distancing is number two. And then basically and limit interactions. And then after that is cleaning and then PPE, right? But I think we've gotten so focused at the bottom, the least effective pieces, because they're the easiest to sort of manage and what we know, like property managers know how to clean. They're really good at cleaning. But the thing that we've heard from a lot of property managers who have opened early is they've said, there's actually not that much worry on the guest side when it comes to how clean the unit is. They trust us that like we've been doing this for a while. We know how to clean. What they're really worried about is, can I get in? Can I get there? Will the cancellation policy be? I think cancellation policies should be the hottest topic.
Hot topic.
Right now. They should be the hottest topic. That's probably more important than how well you clean. Is how much confidence can you give the person that if the world changes really rapidly in a month from now, that they'll be able to get their money back. Yeah.
So we can be very critical and say, in terms of our conversation, we talked about optimizing profitability through technology adoption. We talked a lot about the door, but there's obviously more than that. Where does it go beyond? I mean, when you and I met a couple of years back was in Vegas, we had a lovely lunch in a sports bar together. And you said to me, as you said to me, Simon, the biggest challenge for us is to get the door. And then once we have the door, we can do pretty much anything else thereafter, because obviously with your background and what you have done in your previous career, you understand how these IoT things operate and all the different brands that you can work with. But once you're through the door, I mean, let's quickly talk about this. What else can be done, and where do you see opportunities for hotels, but obviously also for vacation rental? Once the customer is through the door, what else can there be done in terms of automation to increase profitability?
There's so much that can be done, and I think in our efforts to create a sense of delight when someone walks through the door, we sometimes want to do too much. We have some clients that will, so when the door is unlocked, the entry light turns on so that you're not sort of stumbling around looking for switches and where to put, and that's actually quite nice. You don't need to do the entire house with smart lights, but that part's it's useful. It has a function and it feels good. The other part that's really great is just temperature. If the temperature is right when you walk in and you're not like, oh God, it's freezing in here, or feels like a sauna. If you walk in and it feels comfortable, you automatically feel good, right? If you walk in and it feels freezing, or if you walk into a dark room that's cold, that's a bad first impression. If you walk into a room that is lit, that is the temperature that you would expect it to be, it's a good first impression. And so that was one of the things that we always do the thermostat, and because it has the highest guest sort of comfort piece, but it also has a profitability portion because you can set it back to save energy. So that was one of the reasons that I got into this, was that vacation rentals and hotels use as much energy as like an outpatient hospital, because everything's analog and untouched and therefore always on. So if you want to make sure that the guest is always comfortable, you're basically going to leave the place at one temperature, whether they're there or not. And it will not set back if they leave. And a lot of time they spend the whole day at the beach or the whole day out in the city or whatever they're doing. So I think that one's really, really important in terms of comfort and profitability. So like guest satisfaction and overall money savings on electricity. The next is sort of like risk mitigation. The lock is really great at providing a portion of that, but there's a sensor that we really like to use, which is from a French company, which has 4 sensors on it, and it monitors temperature. So if you don't have a thermostat, it's a good way to know if things are freezing or too hot. It's got humidity on there. People really undervalue humidity. Way too humid is really, really uncomfortable. Like above 70% relative humidity, you feel like you can't get hot. I think you probably felt that in Thailand or something, right? Like
exactly.
you just feel like you're never dry. And too dry is also very uncomfortable, right? Below 70%, your nose starts to get dry, static electricity when you touch doorknobs. It's not comfortable. And it's also too dry and too wet are also sort of risk periods. That's sort of the reason why buildings are where you're going to get cold and flu. And usually it's in the winter. And the reason it's in winter is because when you heat air, you dry it out. So you have very, very dry air, which is very perfect for cold and flu viruses to float on little bits of dust, right? That's why cold and flu season is in the colder months, usually spread inside. The two other sensors that it has on it are CO2, which is something we all breathe out. It's the reason a boardroom feels stuffy with too many people in it and everyone starts getting sleepy. You've had that feeling before. We've all had it, and it's because there's too much CO2 in the room. So if you know,
I thought it was a different reason, but
it might be both sometimes. But basically, once you know that, you can, and you have a thermostat that can basically bring in outside air. You can make it better, it's got so many useful pieces to it, right? Like the reason people sleep so well camping is because it's pure oxygen. Like you sleep so much better at lower than 90%, 900 parts per million CO2.
Totally.
You sleep way better. So if you can, it serves double duty. So you know if there are too many people in the space, again, protecting the asset, et cetera, et cetera. But it also is really going to make for a much nicer sleep and stay for the person if you can keep it low, right? Through whatever action you can do. And then the fourth sensor it has on it is a noise sensor. And again, you can look at that as both ways. You're trying to prevent a party, right? You want to make sure you're providing, any damage might come out of your pocket, so that results in profitability. But it also could very well be that the guest can't sleep or the guest is bothered by some outside noise. So like sensors are actually really, really useful. Especially used well. Like a motion sensor is not useful. A motion sensor in the context of a hotel or a vacation rental, not useful. Who cares if there's motion, right? Don't turn lights off based on motion, right? That's a bad experience. You're sitting on the couch watching TV and the lights go out. Like that's not good. It's much better to do it through CO2 or noise or some other function, right? Yeah, that's sort of the way we look at it. Like knowing what's going on in real time allows you to create the best experience, allows you to anticipate what guests want, what guests need, what's happening in the space, what you might need to do later. We sort of see that as the three components, right? A smart lock, a smart thermostat, and sensors so you know what's going on, but sensors that are for this industry.
Wow. I couldn't have closed it better. I mean, there's a lot of complexity. So, ladies and gentlemen, once you're through the door, it only just starts in terms of what can be done to deliver a better guest experience, provide a sustainable product as well. We also need to think about our nature when it comes to heating and cooling and how we live in a healthy environment in terms of in terms of anything that is happening within a space. And now consumer behavior is going to change going forward, and we're seeing that more and more. We have also heard from Michael that hospitality, the hotel, especially the boutique hotel space, is adopting a lot faster to technology to circumvent and fight certain challenges that they're facing on a daily basis. And we do believe that also the vacation rental industry has massive opportunities to increase their profitability, to actually make a better experience for their guests while controlling certain things, especially the automation side of the door, but also anything that is beyond the door for a better guest experience, saving costs to the owners and everything else. So there's definitely a lot more attached to it. And for that purpose, we have also written this white paper between Operto and AJL Consulting to give you a perspective on what can be done within technology and technology adoption of running your operation as efficient as possible and providing the best possible guest experience. Do something for sustainability of this planet and saving money at the same time as well. So for that purpose, I would like to close this conversation. It's been great to have you, Michael. Your insights are always extremely refreshing, and it has a great view in how you see the industry evolving. And it's what I really like, that we have been able to talk about, what is the hospitality industry doing in general, in terms of hotels, boutique hotels, and vacation rentals. And I think we are seeing a certain convergence happening yet again, where we're coming closer together. Vacation rental is a great alternative. Hotels are as well, but obviously with less contact. So in terms of hotels being able to offer less contact, they obviously need to automate more. And this is exactly what the vacation rental industry is doing, or should be doing as well.
And the lovely part is it's more profitable.
And at the end of the day, we are more profitable. We need more oxygen. Oxygen equals profitability. Profitability equals oxygen. So, and that's what it's all about. And we have happy faces all over. So once again, I would like to encourage you to download the white paper on Pillow Talk Media. You will see the link after this presentation, where you can download the white paper, giving you more explanation on technology adoption and increasing your profitability. And Michael, I would like to thank you for joining us today and having this conversation and enlightening us on technology adoption and how to drive profitability in this industry. I hope you stay super well in Vancouver, and we're very much looking forward to having you again.
Thank you. Enjoy your vacation.
We will. I've been looking forward to it. I'm not traveling very far. I'm packing up my family into the car, and we're driving a few hours, and we go to the Swiss Alps and enjoy the fresh air of the Swiss mountains. So everybody take care, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.